Welcome everyone. I hope you're doing really well today. My name is Amy Kathleen Lee. I am a mental health advocate, and we're going to be talking today about how to have a conversation with someone who may be struggling with their mental health. Just like the idea of CPR, everybody's heard of CPR, right? You do 3 steps and you save someone's life. Well, this action plan you're going to learn is 4 steps. It's very similar to CPR, except you don't have to put your mouth on anyone. So that's really good. All right. So in these 4 steps, they're very simple. The plan is called ALEC. It stands for ask, listen, encourage, and connect. So we're going to ask, listen, encourage, and connect. And we learned the other day about the signs or clues that someone might be struggling. Right? And oftentimes we're going to see they're maybe moody more than usual. They're less interested in things. Maybe their self-care is changing. Maybe their hygiene's changing and they're looking a little different, like they haven't been taking good care of themselves. Right? So these are some of the things that we observe. They're possibly from a huge change that's happened in their life. Right? Big changes like divorce or you move, you've lost someone in your family. Those are the big changes that we can see from the outside. But what if we start seeing these signs and symptoms, but nothing's happened? Nothing has happened on the outside that we can see. And that's when I consider maybe it's their mental health. And that prompts me to say, you know what? I think I'm going to check in with them because I want them to know they're not alone. So that brings us to signs. The most simple sign is the bathroom, right? Everybody knows what this sign means. And I know it's silly. Just wait, I'm taking you somewhere. And what do these signs mean? Shout it out or write it in the chat. Don't dive, right? We can see it in the picture. If you dive, you're probably gonna break your neck, all right? I can look at this sign and in 2 seconds I know exactly what it means, right? I'm going feet first. What does that sign mean? Deer crossing, right? But why deer in particular? Does anybody know? Yeah, deer, they're not smart. They will actually stand in the middle of the road and stare at your car coming. Right? So this sign is telling you a whole lot. It's slow down and pay attention. Right? What does this sign mean? No food or drink. That's correct. Do we always listen to this one? Probably not. I'm going to give you my secret. I have what's called a movie purse, right? You know where I'm going with it, right? And I load up on all the cheaper snacks and candy before I get to the theater. So yeah, we know what the sign means, but we don't always listen to it. All right, let's take a look at some different type of signs, like this one. What does that sign mean? She's bored. That's the first thing that I noticed. She's leaning on the desk and she looks really bored. Okay, what about this sign? What does this sign mean? They're having a good time. They're smiling, they look like they're laughing, right? I really hope they're having a good time and they're doing well. But is there a possibility that they're faking it? Do we ever do that? Just kind of put on that smiley face, put on that mask and pretend like everything's okay. I did that for a really, really long time. But all it did was keep me separated from the thing that I needed most, which was other people. I really hope they're doing well and they're having a good time. What about this sign? What does that sign mean? Is it saying, hey, come talk to me, come hang out with me, yay? No, most likely, he wants to be left alone. He's not doing well. Right? How about this sign? What does that sign mean? Tears, right? They could be crying because they're sad, but there are different types of tears, right? There are angry tears. Have you ever gotten so mad you cried? What about happy tears? Have you ever laughed so hard you cried? Absolutely. So there's something about tears and emotions that go together, right? And what about this sign? What does that sign mean? Angry, true. Maybe some people say constipated. I don't think that's the case, but he could be angry and frustrated, All right, does anyone think he might look a little like Wreck-It Ralph? Yeah, he's the huge hands. But yeah, these expressions that we see on someone's face, we pick up on emotions, right? So that is when after we observe, we check in, and that is where our action plan begins. The first step is to ask. All right, and there's a couple of different things you want to consider with this. First of all, you've got to plan ahead, all right? So if you know how to call 911, then you need to know how to call a hotline. You want to have that programmed into your phone before you even get to that conversation. And have you ever planned ahead for a conversation? Yeah. I usually plan ahead when I have to tell, like somebody something that they might freak out. I'll be like, okay, what am I going to say? Okay, so if I say this, they're going to say that, right? So it is okay to plan ahead. Have an idea of what you might share and your resources handy. And also, I know it's hard to believe, but this conversation is not going to be about you. It's going to be about them. You have to think about, where are they going to feel most comfortable? What would they need to hear? So plan ahead, have a place that you might have the conversation, have your resources with you, and be prepared to ask. Now, stop me here, but is it sometimes awkward to ask personal questions? It can be, huh? And you're like, well, I don't know, man. I mean, I was raised to not get in other people's business. But actually, the well-being and the safety of the people you care about is your business. So you are not doing anything wrong by bringing it up. The most important thing that you need to have with you in this conversation is something called empathy. Has anyone heard the word empathy? That's right. So we're going to take a look at deeper level on what empathy actually is and what it sounds like in a conversation.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, and climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Now that that we've heard about empathy and how important it is to have it in our conversations, let's talk about how we express our concern. I hear from a lot of students that they don't mind having the conversation, but they're not sure what to say, or they've even said, give me words to use. And so I figured I would start talking about communication and how we can communicate with someone without making them feel blamed or like this is a choice for them. We don't want that to happen. So this is what I do. I use something called an I statement. All right, an I statement is where I get to share how something's feeling to me. And it helps me to take ownership of that emotion. So for example, if I'm worried about a friend, I'm worried. That's my worry. It belongs to me. So I get to decide what I'm going to do with that. But if I wanted to blame someone for it, I'd say, you are making me feel worried. See how it changed? So we want to use the I feel. And I'm seeing, this is what I'm seeing. It's almost like a fill in the blank. To create an I statement, you plug in how you're feeling, what you're seeing, and what you don't or what you do want to happen. So if you're having a friend who has stopped going anywhere and they're staying at home all by themselves, I would say, hey, I'm worried because lately I've noticed you haven't been leaving the house and I don't know, I just don't want anything to happen to you. So that's a great way to express your concern using an I statement. Next step is to listen. Who thinks they're a good listener? I think I'm a great listener. But listening is actually more active than we realized. We need to make contact or eye contact with the person to kind of let them know that we're in the conversation. For example, if I'm having a conversation with my friend and I'm all just kind of like sitting here and they're talking to me and I'm like, what is my body language saying? It says I'm not listening, right? I'm not even facing them. I'm looking around the room. So our body language speaks a lot, and we want to show someone we're listening. The reason why that is so important is because in these conversations, we are creating what's called space for them to feel heard. And when people are feeling heard, that's when they start to heal. So listening is a very important step. We don't want to give advice, right? That is so hard for me because I'm kind of like a fixer. I like to try to give advice to help people because I don't want anyone to struggle. For example, my daughter came home from school. She was in 5th grade. She comes home, she walks in the door and she drops her backpack and I immediately know something happened, right? And I'm like, hey, what's up? What happened? She says, Mom, so-and-so, they said this to me. And I'm like, oh, no, they didn't. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix that kid. I'm going to go to that school. I'm going to fix that kid. And of course, my daughter's like, no, that's why I don't tell my mom. Right? But in that moment, when she comes home and she shares with me what that so-called friend said, did she really need me to fix that in that moment? No. She needed me to just listen and be like, man, that must have been really hard to hear from a so-called friend. So we don't need to give advice or fix it because honestly, we can't. We don't have that kind of power, but we do have the power to encourage and to connect. Put your cell phone away, right? We always have our cell phone with us. But a cell phone, it's like, we're always connected to it. And how are we supposed to really show the person we're talking to that we're really listening? The best thing to do is to put your phone down. Even better, put it away in your backpack because you don't need it at this step. You're going to need it later, but you don't need it right now, right? You have your cell phone away, you're making eye contact, you're open, you're not trying to fix, and you're not judging what they're going through, right? Totally open. And then encourage. Third step, we've asked, expressed our concern, we've listened, now we're going to encourage them. But have you ever experienced someone trying to encourage you and they had the opposite effect? And you're thinking, wow, definitely not coming to them to talk, right? So some of the things could be, well, if I were you, I would. I thought, well, you're not me, so that's not really encouraging. Or how about, it could be worse. Thanks. Or at least, we heard that in the video, right? Well, at least you have a dog because I don't have one. Or, I've been through worse and I got through it. I think I know where they're going with this. And they're trying to be encouraging by saying, hey, you know what? I've experienced that too. And I was able to get past it. But who is that comment about? It's about them. This conversation isn't about them. It's about the person they're helping. Lastly, maybe you're just being too sensitive. Have you heard that one? Yeah. You know what? My sensitivity actually is my superpower, and it really helps me to connect with people and help them in pretty unsafe situations. So yes, you know what? It's okay to be sensitive. So no, we're not going to use those types of comments. There's some really easy, encouraging statements that we can say, and they sound really simple. For example, I want you to know you mean a lot to me. I want you to know that your feelings matter. Just reminding someone that their feelings actually matter. There's so many messages that come from the outside that tell us that they don't. Or what about, we are going to get through this. Not you are going to get through this. We are going to get through this. The word we gives us a sense of we're doing this together. I am alongside you. Or, I want you to know you're stronger than you realize. I needed to hear that when I was in the psychiatric hospital and I thought I would never be able to do anything with my life because of my disease. And every year I struggled and I fought to get past that. And when my family said, Amy, you are so much stronger than you realize, it got me through. Those are one of these statements that you can share. This is simple, right? We're already at the end, which is to connect. So we've asked, we've expressed our concern, we've listened like an awesome friend does, right? We've encouraged them, and now we're going to connect because this is your role. Encourage, listen, connect them to help. You are the person that sends them along and connects them with the resources and the help they need. Because remember, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to figure it out. It's not your job. So you're going to have those resources on hand. Now, I have found there are two roadblocks, things that come up in our way, trying to get someone help. First, they promise you to not tell anybody. Ooh, this is a really tough one, right? It happens a lot. But in these unsafe situations, their life is more important than your friendship. Friendships can be fixed, they can be mended, they can be start over again. But you can't bring someone back. So in those moments, you can't keep those deadly secrets. You have to tell someone as soon as possible. I hope you're never in that situation, but if you are, know that you aren't alone and that there's support for you as well. Or you're having a conversation, you've done everything right with your ALEC plan. And you're like, hey, let's go talk to someone. They're like, nah, it's all right, I'm good. Have you ever had somebody tell you that? They're like, oh yeah, I'm good. And you totally know they're not good. Well, if it's not a safety issue, you don't have to push it. You can just be like, hey, okay, cool. Well, I'm here if you change your mind. Like, I'm here if you want to talk. Yeah. It takes the pressure off, right? And they know that you're not going anywhere. And that's a really good thing. Where do we turn to for help again, right? So we have campus and we have outside of school. So on campus, again, you can start by talking to a friend, or you can get a friend group together and just sort of have a conversation. You can also talk to a teacher, a guidance counselor, if those are the people that you feel comfortable with, okay? You can also talk to another trusted adult on campus, say a coach or the librarian. You can also talk to, outside of school, one of your parents or an aunt or an uncle. Say you do have a close family. So that is a good resource for you. Or if you're like some people, they say, I don't really want to talk to anybody. I'd rather text back and forth and maybe talk to somebody that doesn't know me or anything that's going on. So the resource that I encourage you to use is text, our teen text line, Teen Line Online. Teens text you back. So you're having a conversation with someone that most likely has experienced something similar. Or you can call a hotline. We have those cards now. We know that we can call that hotline, even if it's not a crisis, but especially if it is. So now it's time to practice. Okay, you've heard the steps. I have 100% confidence that you've got this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break up into groups, and you're going to be using the ALEC Action Plan worksheet that's gonna give you the instructions on how to create your own action plan to help a friend or a loved one, okay? So here's your scenario of the person that you're going to help. It's a very good friend of yours that you've known for a long time. Lately, they've been missing more school than they used to. They're looking like they haven't been taking good care of themselves. Last time you hung out, you noticed like a scrape or cut on their arm. It looked a little suspicious. The last text message they sent, it said, "You're not gonna have to worry about me much longer." So you have a good friend, missing more school, looking like they haven't been taking care of themselves, possible self-harm, and what I call an indirect verbal clue, you're not gonna have to worry about me much longer. So those are some red flags, right? Yeah, it's a safety issue, okay? So you know that you're gonna be using your hotline resources. Those are gonna be in your pocket and in your plan, okay? So I'm gonna let you go ahead and go to your groups or online, get in your breakout groups, and create your own action plan and how you're gonna help this friend. Excellent job on your action plans. I have 100% confidence in every single one of you that you can use this action plan and possibly save someone's life. After all of this education and practice, you would be what I call mental health advocates. And you can be the difference that you want to see in your school. You can be the difference you want to see in your community, and you can be a difference in the world. Because that's what it's all about. We are all connected, right? So thank you so much for joining me in this. And I hope that all of you remember that you are not alone, that you have value, and that you're extremely important. And we are all in this together.